Hello, I'm Jim Schaub and I'm the Midwest Regional Manager for Doosan Forklifts. Today we're going to talk about one of the best-selling trucks that Doosan sells, the GC25S-9. Okay, now we're going to talk about the front of the Doosan truck. So there's a couple of key components here, the mast and the differential. So first I'm going to talk about the mast. If you take a look at the mast that we're showing you here today, it looks like a two-stage mast, correct? But it's not, it's actually a three-stage mast. And the reason that it looks like a two-stage mast is because of the all Doosan design. Doosan builds their own mast and our own attachments. So what we use is a C-channel and then two I-beams that are interlocked when they're stacked together, which moves the inner and the outer closer together to give it this two-stage look. I like to tell people that we have two-stage visibility with three-stage capability. Why is that important to you? It's because it opens up this window. It gives the operator a much better view through the mast so that they can drive the truck more safely. So the other thing is this truck is designed with a side shifting fork positioner, which means the forks can go left and right. They also can go in and out. So the operator doesn't have to get off and manually move the forks. This truck also can come with an integral just side shifter and a hang-on side shifter, which gives you the ability to add other attachments to the truck. Lastly, the differential. It's really important to know that Doosan built this differential to help protect your truck. So the design is, it's got J-hooks on the front, so the mast actually hangs into a little hook on the front of it. It doesn't clamp around your axle and use a fiber trunnion bearing that wears out very quickly. It's just a pin and bushing. They last extremely long and they're super easy to service. But the axle itself is a double gear reducted axle. So it's an offset full floating axle. So your ring and pinion's in the center and it transfers the power out to the wheels. Instead of having a flange that turns the wheels, there's a floating axle with a gear on the end of it out here in the wheel. And that gear spins a little gear, which spins another little gear, which spins the ring gear. So what's that creating? It's creating gear reduction. Whenever you gear reduct something, you gain torque, a lot of torque. And the other key component by gear reducting is it protects your transmission too. So if you're changing directions without coming to a full stop, that on a conventional system, that will destroy your transmission. But on our design, we actually publish, you can change directions at speeds up to 5 miles an hour and you will not hurt our transmission. That's mostly due to our differential design, because if I come out of a trailer and I don't come to a full stop and I put it in forward, what'll happen is all that torque is absorbed in the gear reduction and not transferred into the transmission, protecting the transmission and keeping the clutch packs from being destroyed. So key features that protect your investment. Let's take a look under the hood. One of the first things you'll notice is how wide our hood actually opens. Makes it very easy for technicians to work on the equipment and how easy it is to get it open. So slide the seat forward, tilt the backrest forward. There's a lever right here. You pop the hood, it lifts right up and locks into place so it can't fall down. So one of Doosan's goals is always to help reduce cost of ownership for you as the customer. And one of the ways we do that is to make it easy to work on. So we do simple things like we put the fuse box, very easy to get to. The side panels come off with thumb screws. You don't need to use tools to get the thumb screws off. The battery is easy to get to. If you look over there, the air filter, it's easy to get to, but key to this air filter system is, we draw our air through the right upright tube. Engine life is directly extended by the quality air that goes into the engine. So it's very key that you have clean air. So one of the things we do that others don't do is we put dual air elements in that air filter over there, so that we can make sure you're getting the cleanest air as possible into your engine. Speaking of the engine, you may recognize this engine. This engine is the K25. This has really been a gold standard engine for 15-20 years. You may have recognized it under a different name as a Nissan K25. Nissan doesn't own it anymore. A company called GCT owns it, and Doosan uses it in our lift truck. So high quality, very strong, well-built engine. The other thing to engine life is heat, right? So these trucks, in particular, a cushion style truck, tend to use hydraulic attachments, different types of attachments, and it causes the engines to have more strain, which make more heat. So one of the things that we do differently is our radiator system. So it's a very thick radiator, but the top third of this radiator is dedicated for cooling the transmission fluid only. So it's got an external transmission cooler on it. It doesn't affect the temperature of the engine coolant, because the bottom 2/3 is dedicated for engine coolant only. So that really helps with keeping those two temperatures separated from each other, so they can't affect each other's temperatures, and keeps both the transmission and the engine running at cool temperatures, even at very high ambient temperature. Many of Doosan's customers require that their operators do a daily safety check on the equipment before they use it. There's three main components of a lift truck that you for sure want to protect. In the driveline, it's the engine, the transmission, and the differential, right? So Doosan puts dipsticks in all three of those. Makes it very easy, no tools required to check the fluid levels in any of these three major components. You can reach in, you can see the dipsticks, very easy to get to for the engine. The transmission is also very easy to get to. You don't need any tools. You can simply come back, lift up the floor plate slightly, and you can reach in and grab the dipstick and check the fluid level of the transmission. And the third dipstick is in the differential itself. Doosan's the only OEM that I'm aware of that actually puts a dipstick in there. So your operators don't need any tools. They can just reach in, grab the dipstick, and check the fluid level. Very important to protect all the bearings and gears that are in the differential to make sure that that stays full of fluid. To continue with the ease of maintenance, I want to point out a couple other things. How easy it is to access the transmission through the floorboard. It's all toolless, and the location of the hydraulic levers. Before we lift the floorboard, I want to talk to you a little bit about this floor mat itself. Key is these little extrusions right here. You can see that they fall into a hole in the floor pan itself. The mat doesn't scoot around and get all bunched up. So the mat pops off very easily, no tools. We can lift the floor pan itself off, again, no tools. And now you can see the transmission is completely exposed. Okay, now we're going to talk about the operator's compartment. But before we get into the operator's compartment, I do want to point out one quick thing. The oil-cooled disc brakes system that we have on this truck. This by far is the leading feature that sets Doosan above literally everyone else. But this oil-cooled disc brakes is the braking system we have is actually in the differential. It runs in the fluid, and it lasts such a long time that we are able to put a 5-year, 10,000 hour warranty on it. So if you think about that, if you're a 2,000 hour a year user and you're leasing for five years, you're guaranteed on a Doosan to never do a brake job the whole time you own the truck. And that warranty is all internal components, all parts, and labor. So that's zero cost when it comes to brakes over a conventional shoe system, which is probably the leading cause of maintenance If you add up all your brake-related problems with a shoe brake truck, with the squealing brakes and lockup problems and adjustments, and let alone a $2,000 brake job, all that disappears when you own a Doosan because it's guaranteed. So when we designed the 9 Series trucks, one of the things we tasked our engineers with was we wanted a truck that was narrower, shorter, but we wanted a larger operator's compartment, and we needed it to be more residual capacity at higher heights. So you can see how large of an area you have for legroom. We narrowed the truck up, and I'll show you when we get to the rear of the truck how we were able to maintain capacity. So this seat here is a suspension seat, which means it's spring-loaded, help give you some comfort, especially when you're driving over dock plates. The tension of that spring is adjustable by this little lever in the middle of the seat. You can unwind it to loosen the spring pressure or wind it up tighter to give it more spring pressure for heavier operators. The other thing is we have recline. So whatever's more comfortable for you, if you like your seat back up or tilted back, you can do that. And also your forward and aft is adjusted here with this knob here. Another thing that we hear from a lot of operators over the years was seat belt length, right? So larger operators need a longer seat belt, otherwise it's very hard for them to get their seat belt plugged in. So, you know, there's a normal seat belt length. Well, Doosan listened to the operator and we made it super long. I mean, if you look at this thing is longer than my wingspan. So it's larger operators don't have a problem plugging in their seat belt. And if you notice, it's orange. Doosan went many years ago standard to orange seat belts. So this truck, in fact, does have that optional feature. It's very cheap, like $23, where the seat belt has to be plugged in or the truck will not travel or lift. The problem is you can plug it in and sit on it, you're still not wearing your seat belt. So that, combined with an orange seat belt, allows supervisors to see from a long distance whether their operators are wearing their seat belts or not. So to get up into this truck, we got a very low step height. We put this handle here on the roll cage so that operators don't use the steering column to pull themselves up. Your third point of entry is the hip restraint. So I grab the handle, low step height, I can slide right up into the truck very easily. And then the seat belt plugs in very easily. And now, again, I can move my seat forward and back. Steering column sculpted, very narrow, and then I can adjust my tilt of my steering wheel, and also I can telescope the steering wheel to whatever position is most comfortable for me. So I can lock it into place, forward, reverse, spinner knob, very small steering wheel that's kind of offset to the left so that you don't have to cross over your body. Less fatigue on your shoulder. Spinner knob standard. So because this truck is hydrostatic steering, it's okay to have a spinner knob on there, because no matter what, if you were to run into something with your steer wheel, this steering wheel cannot spin in your hand. And looking forward through that two-stage looking type mast, that's actually a three-stage we talked about earlier. Excellent visibility through the mast. Just looking down with my eyes, I can see from the tip of my fork through more than 3/4 of the way back. I can see just by looking down, shifting my eyes. I don't have to look forward and sit up or look down. So excellent visibility throughout this truck with the low cowl. So during the under the hood section, if you remember, I told you one of the good features about having our hydraulic control levers under the hood was, right, the ease of maintenance. Well, I said there was a second reason why it's good to have it there, and that is for operator comfort. So as the operator's sitting in his seat and working, their arms in a very natural position to operate all of the hydraulics, as opposed to if your hydraulic control levers are under the dash and the levers are way up front here, you know, it's a lot more stress. Your arm's in an unnatural position. You can imagine working 8 hours a day on this truck and having to hold your arm out. That's a lot of stress. So being back, very comfortable position to be in. Then the other thing is, Doosan recognized probably way back in 2009 when we introduced the previous model before this even, we recognized that the operators, you know, they drive in reverse a lot. They're always driving backwards when they have a load on. And what happens is they tend to hold on to this rear post, especially on a cushion tired truck that's working indoors around racking and posts. This is a dangerous thing to do because if you hit the racking or a post, you can obviously hurt your fingers really bad. So what we did was we put this rear grab bar on here for the operator to hang on to. It gives them something to hold on to while they're traveling in reverse. You got this little orange button on here so I can honk the horn from that rear grab bar, right? So now I can maintain control of my truck, look in the direction of travel. I don't have to come to an intersection, let go of control of my truck to honk the horn. Or if I reach this way, now I'm not looking in the direction of travel to honk the horn, right? Maintain control of the truck, keep my fingers inside, honk the horn when I come to an intersection. This is a thing that Doosan did a long time ago before anyone else. And if any Doosan truck, if you can reach this rear post, there's a rear grab bar and horn button on this rear post. So the other things we talked about was how spacious the foot room is on this model truck. You can see the angle of the accelerator pedal puts my foot and ankle in a relaxed position. Underneath the dash here on the left-hand side, you see there's 2 USB ports, 5-volt USB ports. We recognize that a lot of our customers use scanners and things like that while they're working in the trucks. So this gives them a place to, you know, mount a handheld scanner, and they can plug it in and charge their scanners on the truck. And then lastly, what I want to talk about is the parking brake and the dash display. So electronic parking brake. You can see there's just an electric switch here. To set the parking brake, you have to move this black button forward and then rock the parking brake down to set the electronic parking brake. The key to this system is it's a transmission lock. It's not setting shoes against a drum when you're pulling a lever and a cable, all things that can wear out over time. And then you can forget to release it, so you go to take off and you're driving with the brakes on, you smell the brakes burning. So when you activate this electronic parking brake, this truck will actually shift into neutral. So even if the parking brake's set and I put it in forward and it will not go into forward gear, it'll stay into neutral. So you cannot drive through the parking brake. And then the display panel, right? So this is your information center. It's located in a position where I can glance down and see it. It's not obstructing my view. And then all your information's here. You know, charge, oil pressure, parking brake, your light switches. You can see all the different things that it can tell you, hour meter and all that stuff. But the key is also when your operators are doing their daily checklist, one of the things that they don't like to do is check the air filters. We have an awesome system where actually there's a dash light that tells you when your air filter needs to be serviced. So you don't have to do all that. The operator can get on his truck and actually look to see if when the light comes on, he knows his air filter needs to be serviced. Okay, we're going to talk about the rear of the truck now. And what we're going to talk about is this counterweight. And I want to explain to you how this is more than just what it sounds like, a counterweight that allows you to get your lifting capacity. When we designed this truck, part of making the engine run cool so that it'll last longer is the ability for the fan to push air through the radiator and escape out the back of the counterweight. So there was lots of engineer studies done on this during the testing process to make that as efficient as possible. You know, good to look at, but it still functions properly and gets all the air out of the back of the counterweight very quickly. So no matter if you're in very hot ambient temperatures, this engine will run cool for you. You'll also notice that we have a toe pin. That's standard on all Doosan trucks. They come with a toe pin. And then lastly, on the back of the truck, I want to talk to you about the steer axle and the frame. So I talked to you earlier on the frame. We had to make the truck narrower and shorter, but we wanted to maintain capacity to much higher heights. So 189-inch lift height, we can take 5,000 pounds all the way to the top, where our old Dash 5 design, we could only do that up to 150 inches. So how did we do that? Well, how you do that is lowering the center of gravity, right? So this frame used to be an all weldment frame, and now the back half of this frame is actually a casting, steel cast. So what we've did is increase the weight of our frame on this 5,000 pound truck from 850 pounds to 1,653 pounds. And all that weight is really low to the ground. And the other thing is you'll be able to see that the casting acts as an inner fender well too. That also helps you in that when I'm driving the truck and the steer tires are spinning, it's not throwing debris up into the engine compartment, so which gets picked up by the fan and it tries to shove it through the radiator, right? So it acts as an engine guard, keeps debris from entering the engine compartment, and it's a lot of heavy weight down low to the ground. And then the steer axle itself, Doosan has been the leader in the strongest steer axle in the industry for many, many years. And that's because we use a tapered roller bearing kingpin system. The kingpins are what makes your tire stand straight up and down, and they pivot on when they turn. So many manufacturers use needle bearing systems, and the bearing runs on the pin itself, so it's a wear point. And then especially when you're driving over dock plates, it just hammers them bearings and they wear out very quickly. So doing a kingpin repair is not uncommon on this style truck within 10,000 hours. These tapered roller bearings actually are from the automotive industry. It's actually a wheel bearing from the automotive industry. So it has an inner race, no wear point, and they're much stronger. So in fact, we found that they last 5 times longer than a needle bearing. So you can imagine if you do one needle bearing repair in 10,000 hours, you'd never have to worry about doing a kingpin repair on the Doosan because it's going to last 5 times longer. That concludes our video here on the GC25S. Thank you for considering Doosan. If you want to know more, you can go to doosanlift.com and you can search the nearest dealer to you. So thank you, and I hope you see now why Doosan is quickly becoming the leader in the cushion tire industry.